There are places you enter not with your feet, but with a hunger you barely admit to yourself. His workshop was one of them. It smelled like cedar and sweat, like heat and dust and something deeply male. I could hear the slow rasp of sandpaper before I even stepped inside, that steady rhythm scraping against wood and somewhere deeper inside me. I told myself I was just curious, that I needed a new table, that I admired craftsmanship. But the truth is I was chasing a feeling I hadn't felt in a long time. Something raw, something real, something that didn't ask for permission. He was younger than me. That should have been my first warning. T-shirt clinging to his back, jeans smeared with sawdust, hands rough with work and yet impossibly precise. His name was Wes, but in my head I called him Trouble. Trouble with golden forearms, a crooked grin, and eyes that seemed to undress your thoughts before you even knew you had them. He looked up when I walked in like he'd been expecting me. Didn't think you'd actually come. There was a challenge in his voice, not disrespectful but confident. Like he knew exactly what this was. I tried to keep my voice light. Just curious. Wanted to see what you do with all that noise back here. Noise. He smirked, brushing his hand over the table he was working on. This is art. You just haven't touched it yet. There it was. That flicker of heat beneath a harmless word. Touched. I should have walked away right then. Instead, I stepped further in, letting the heavy door close behind me with a thud that echoed in my chest. The sunlight cut in through the high windows, dust dancing in the golden beams. He watched me like I was another piece of wood he was sizing up, looking for my grain, testing my tension. You wanna try? He asked. He was already moving toward me, a brush of sawdust trailing behind him. I nodded before my mouth could catch up. He guided me to the table, close enough that I could feel the warmth off his skin. He stood behind me, not touching, but near enough to make the hairs on the back of my neck lift. My heart was racing. He placed a block of wood under my palms. It was warm, alive in a way I didn't expect. Then slowly his hands covered mine. It's all in the motion, he murmured. He guided my hands forward, sandpaper pressing between our palms, the friction sending tremors up my arms. Each stroke was slow, deliberate, and far more intimate than it should have been. I felt the rasp of the grain, the resistance, the way it gave in over time. The metaphor wasn't lost on me. His breath brushed my ear. Feel that? You don't force it. You coax it. My whole body tightened. This was nothing. This was everything. I wanted to pull away. I wanted to press back. I wanted something I didn't have a name for. He paused. You okay? I couldn't answer. My lips were parted, breath shallow. And then I turned to face him. His hand still covered mine. And that's when I saw it in his eyes. That same forbidden question I was trying not to ask myself. I should have said no. I should have stepped back. But instead I whispered, show me more. I didn't realize how long we stood like that. His hands over mine, the wood between us, the air charged with something too alive to ignore. Show me more, I'd whispered. He didn't smile. He didn't speak. But something changed in him, in his posture, in the way his fingers released mine just slowly enough to feel like a drag. He moved around the table and for a moment, I missed the warmth of him at my back. Wes picked up another block of wood, this one smoother, curved, darker, and set it down with almost reverence. You ever oil something raw? He asked, voice low. I shook my head. He unscrewed a small tin of finishing oil, and the scent hit me warm, sweet, earthy. Watch. He dipped a cloth in the oil and began to rub it into the wood. Slow circles. His movements were hypnotic. The grain bloomed under his touch, darkening, coming to life. The contrast of his rough hands over that smooth surface did something to me. It wasn't just watching. It was imagining how that touch might feel somewhere less safe. You try, he said. I reached out. He didn't guide me this time. He just watched. I moved the cloth across the surface, feeling it catch and glide. It was strangely intimate, sensual, almost the way the wood responded, how it seemed to breathe under my touch. He leaned in again, voice close. You feel how it gives in, just a little? I nodded, my throat too dry to speak. He was standing beside me now, our shoulders almost brushing. I could feel the heat radiating off him. I was so aware of my own body, of where my shirt clung to my back, of how my lips parted when I tried to concentrate. Of the tremor in my fingers I hoped he wouldn't notice. But of course he did. "You're shaking," he murmured. "I'm not," I lied softly. Wes reached out and brushed a spot of oil from my wrist. Just one finger. But the contact felt like a match strike across skin. He looked at me, and there was nothing casual in his gaze anymore. There was weight. Intention. I took a step back. "This is more intense than I expected." He nodded. "It usually is." I should have left. I should have made an excuse, laughed it off, said I'd come back another day. But I didn't. Instead, I sat down on the edge of the work table. My legs dangled, knees brushing the grain. I felt bare there, not just physically but emotionally. Like something had cracked open and I didn't know how to close it again. "Why do you do this?" I asked. He looked at his hands. "Because it slows me down. Makes me feel things I don't have words for." That struck something deep. Because I knew exactly what he meant. His gaze moved to me again, slower this time. "You came in here looking for something. What was it?" I wanted to lie. But the truth was heavy on my tongue. To remember what it's like to feel wanted. He stepped closer. Not touching. Not yet. But I could feel the tension between us growing, threading through the silence like a live wire. His voice was barely above a whisper. "You think I don't want you?" I stared at him. The cut of his jaw, the way his lashes cast shadows under his eyes, the twitch in his jaw that betrayed restraint. "I think you know exactly what you're doing," I whispered. Wes tilted his head. "Maybe. But I also know how to wait." He reached over me, slow, deliberate, and pulled down a tool from the rack above. His body brushed mine just barely, but enough to make my breath hitch. Then he walked away, like he hadn't just lit a fire and left me standing in the middle of it. I sat there, pulse racing, skin buzzing, trying to understand why I didn't hate that feeling, why I needed it. And as I watched him, shoulders flexing as he worked, the scent of wood and heat wrapping around us again, I realized I wasn't leaving anytime soon. I watched him from the edge of the work table, my palms flat beside me, trying to steady the tremble in my bones. Wes worked like the air wasn't thick with tension, like he hadn't just peeled something open inside me with a glance and a whisper. He moved with quiet precision, sliding the blade of a chisel into the wood like it was an extension of his own body. Every motion had purpose. Every breath seemed measured. And yet he was watching me too. Not directly. But I saw the way his gaze flicked up when I shifted, how his jaw tightened when my legs swayed just slightly off the edge of the table. He was pretending to focus, but his body betrayed him. The shallow inhale, the flex of his hand. The silence between us wasn't empty. It was full. Heavy with everything we weren't saying. "I should go," I said eventually, though my voice didn't carry much conviction. He didn't look up. "So go." But I didn't move. I was waiting for something. Permission. A sign. A reason to stay that wasn't just the ache I'd been carrying under my skin since I walked in. He finally turned to face me. There was sawdust in his hair, a smudge on his cheekbone, and he looked so damn alive, like the kind of man who could ruin you just by knowing exactly when to stop holding back. "Do you always run when something feels too good?" he asked, almost too gently. That cracked something in me. "No," I said. "I usually just pretend it isn't happening." His eyes softened for a moment and then darkened. He walked over. Not quickly. Just intentionally. Like every step was part of a decision he'd already made. "You think this is just about touch," he murmured. "But it's not." He reached out, and this time he didn't ask permission. His thumb brushed my knee, slow and deliberate, and even that tiny contact made heat rush straight through me. "It's about control," he continued. "About letting go. About being still long enough to feel something real." I couldn't breathe. Couldn't speak. His hand slid a little higher, fingers curling just under the edge of my hem. Not possessive. Not demanding. Just curious. "I could teach you," he said, almost like a dare. "If you'd let me." There it was, the edge. The moment where I could either step back into comfort or lean into something dangerous. I leaned. Just a little. My legs parted ever so slightly, and his breath caught. He stepped between them, the warmth of him crowding the space around me. Still no kiss. No bold move. Just nearness. Electricity. And then he placed my hands on the table again. "Let's start over," he whispered. But this time don't fake it. Don't hide. He moved behind me, guiding my fingers across another piece of raw wood. I could feel his chest just grazing my back, his breath at my neck, and every nerve in my body lit up like a fuse. This wasn't about furniture. It was about surrender. And as the sun dipped lower outside the dusty windows, casting everything in amber, I let myself feel it. The weight of him behind me, the strength in his silence, the slow awakening of something I thought I'd lost. And just when I thought I could finally relax into it, his voice cut through the hush. There's something I haven't told you. I turned my head. He was watching me with a look that made my stomach drop, not fear. Something more dangerous. Desire, yes, but layered with something else. A secret. I turned slowly, still feeling the imprint of his hands on mine. My breath caught as I looked up at him. There's something I haven't told you, he said again, quieter this time, like the words might fall apart if he spoke them too fast. I tried to smile to cut the tension. What? You're actually a terrible carpenter? He didn't laugh. His eyes held mine with something hotter, heavier. Regret? No. It was something more volatile. Desire tangled with restraint, like he'd been holding this back since the moment I stepped through his door. I knew who you were before you walked in here, he said. Silence. I stared at him, my skin prickling with something colder now. What do you mean? He stepped back, just enough for the air to feel lonely between us again. I built your ex-husband's wine cellar. My mouth opened and nothing came out. Wes let the confession hang there, like sawdust in sunlight. 2 years ago. You weren't there, but your name was on every blueprint, every label, every note in the house. I remember thinking, whoever she is, she sees everything. You had this precision, this care, but also you felt far away. I didn't know what to say. The room felt tilted, like I'd stepped into a memory I didn't consent to revisit. I'm not with him anymore, I said quietly, defensive without meaning to be. I know, he said. That's not the point. Then what is? He moved closer again, slower now, like he was approaching a wounded animal. I watched him ignore you, even in your own handwriting. Every label you made, he changed. Every detail you marked, he overrode. I never forgot that. His voice was low, almost angry. Not at me. For me. You were invisible in your own home, he added. And now, you walk in here looking like you want to be seen again. My lips parted, but it wasn't breath I lost, it was safety. Because he was right. He reached up, brushing a stray hair from my cheek, and this time I let him. I didn't move, didn't flinch. I just stood there, stripped in a way I hadn't been in years. Not of clothes. A pretense. I didn't bring you in here just for the work, he said. I brought you here to show you what it feels like to be chosen. Something cracked inside me then. A soundless break. No one had said that to me in years. Not with words, not with actions, not even in the quiet of a touch. And now here was this man, younger, bolder, unafraid, who had seen the blueprint of my life and still wanted to build something with me. Wes, I whispered. I know, he said. I shouldn't want this. I looked at his hands, still dusted in sawdust, still trembling slightly, still waiting for permission. I want it too, I admitted, barely able to say it aloud. But I don't know how to want something that doesn't hurt. He stepped into me again, closer than before. His hand rested at my waist, light but grounding. Then let's make something new, he murmured. From scratch. And then finally, his lips hovered near mine. Not touching, just close enough for my body to lean forward without realizing it. But he didn't kiss me. He pulled back just an inch and whispered, not yet. I closed my eyes, dizzy with frustration and fire. Why not? He smiled, dark, slow, and impossibly sure. Because the wanting is the best part. That night I didn't sleep. Even hours later, I could still feel the ghost of his breath on my skin, the echo of his voice in my spine. Because the wanting is the best part. He had pulled away just when I was unraveling. And that somehow was worse than if he'd kissed me. Because now the hunger had no name. Just heat. Just ache. Just memory. The next day I didn't mean to go back. I tried to stay busy, to remind myself that this was foolish. That I was older, wiser, supposedly beyond being undone by someone's hands and a block of wood. But by early afternoon I was standing outside his workshop again, heart hammering, breath shallow. The door was unlocked. The air hit me like the rush of a secret warm, thick with sawdust and tension. I stepped in slowly, half hoping he wouldn't be there, half terrified that he would. He was. Back turned, shirt half off as he wiped sweat from the back of his neck, muscles flexing under a thin sheen of sweat. He didn't turn around. "I was hoping you'd come back," he said simply. "I wasn't planning to. But you did." He finally turned, pulling his shirt over his head, voice even, like he wasn't watching me with the kind of gaze that could set a whole room on fire. "Did you think about it?" he asked. I blinked. "About what?" "The wanting." I hesitated. It didn't stop. A slow smile curved across his lips. Not smug, hungry. He walked toward me, one step at a time, every inch of space between us shrinking until I could smell the sun and wood and skin on him. "I'm not going to rush this," he said, his voice low. "But I'm not going to pretend either." He reached behind me, grabbing a thick board off the shelf and laid it down on the table. Then he looked at me. "Come here." I moved without thinking. He guided me to the edge of the table, placed my hands on the grain again. This time he didn't stand behind me. He stood in front, so close that my hips nearly brushed the wood, and my breath caught with every inch of distance he refused to close. "Feel that?" he asked. I nodded. His fingers hovered just over mine. "Now close your eyes." I hesitated. "Trust me." I did. I closed them. He touched me then, just my wrists at first, fingertips moving slow, circling gently over skin. Then the inside of my forearms up to my elbows. His hands didn't roam. They studied, memorized, like I was a blueprint he had waited years to trace. My whole body was alive. And still he didn't kiss me. "You're shaking again," he whispered. "I don't know what to do with this," I said. He leaned closer, his breath at my ear. "You don't have to know. You just have to feel it." He pressed his palms to mine on the table. His chest brushed mine. The heat between us was unbearable, electric, crawling down my spine, pooling in the low part of my stomach. And then he kissed my wrist. Just once. But it felt like the ground shifted. I opened my eyes. He was staring at me, eyes dark, mouth inches from mine. But still no kiss. "I want to," he said, voice hoarse. "So do it." He shook his head. "Not when you're this unsure." I hated him in that moment. And I wanted him more than I had ever wanted anything. And then, without another word, he stepped away. "I'll be here tomorrow," he said. "But only if you walk through the door because you want to, not because you don't know how to stop." I stood there, breathless, furious, aching, and completely undone. Because now I was the one who couldn't stop thinking about him. And worse, I didn't want to. I didn't wait until afternoon this time. By morning, I was already pacing in front of the workshop like a woman on the edge of something she couldn't name. My hand hovered near the handle, heart pounding so loud I swore it might shake the door loose from its frame. He said I had to walk in only if I wanted to. I did. But what I wanted was messy, confused, tied in knots of old shame and new hunger. I wasn't used to this kind of wanting, the kind that didn't wait for permission or make excuses. The kind that left your skin humming with unfinished sentences. When I finally opened the door, the creak felt like a confession. Wes was already inside. He looked up from the bench, that same slow steadiness in his eyes, but something sharper too. Like he'd been waiting, like he knew I'd come back, but didn't know in what version of myself. "You came early," he said. "I didn't want to think anymore." He nodded. "Good. Thinking ruins it." I stepped in. This time I didn't hesitate. I moved right to him, no banter, no games. He stood still as I approached, his breath shifting just slightly. And when I stopped in front of him, so close I could see the sawdust clinging to his lashes, I whispered, "I'm done pretending I don't want this." He didn't ask what this was. He knew. His hands came up slowly, cupping my jaw like I might still vanish. His thumbs brushed my cheeks, and I leaned into the warmth of him like it was the only steady thing left in my world. "I've been patient," he said, his voice rough. "But I need to touch you now. Really touch you." I nodded, already breathless. Then finally he kissed me. It wasn't soft. It was everything we'd held back. poured into a single moment. Hot, desperate, deep. His mouth claimed mine with a kind of hunger that pulled a sound from my throat I didn't know I was holding. My fingers tangled in his shirt, dragging him closer. His hand slipped to my waist, gripping like he needed me to stay tethered to him. We moved together like a storm breaking, like a dam giving way. He turned me around, guiding me gently against the edge of the table, hands on my hips. The same table where we'd sanded wood and exchanged metaphors was now the place where our restraint came undone. He kissed down my neck, slow and aching, and every inch of my body felt lit from within. His touch wasn't greedy, it was reverent. Like he was trying to learn me by feel. Like every inch of skin was a new discovery. "You okay?" he murmured against my collarbone. I nodded. "Better than okay." He pulled back just enough to look in my eyes. "Tell me if it's too much." "It's not enough." That was all he needed. His hands traveled over me like he was sculpting something invisible. And I let him. I let myself want, let myself feel, let the fear melt into fire. Time blurred. The sounds around us, creaking wood, breath, the soft groan of old floorboards, all became part of something wordless and primal. And when he finally pulled me into his arms, holding me like something he'd never drop, I realized this wasn't just about pleasure. It was about being chosen. Not for convenience. Not for appearances. But for the way I trembled. For the way I burned. For the way I broke open in his hands and didn't feel ashamed. He kissed my forehead. "You feel that?" "What?" "That's what real looks like." I closed my eyes against his chest, breath steadying. But I knew it couldn't stay this way. Because even as I melted into him, I heard something, a knock. A sharp, sudden knock on the side door. Wes stiffened. I pulled back. He didn't say anything. But I saw it in his face. That knock wasn't random. It meant something. And whatever it meant, it wasn't good. The knock echoed like a threat in the silence. 3 firm raps. Not hesitant, not polite. Like someone who had every right to be there. Wes froze, his arm still around my waist, but his body now tense. His breath slowed into something shallow. I whispered, "Who is it?" He didn't answer. The knock came again. Louder. He finally pulled away from me, stepping back like he had to tear himself off piece by piece. "I need you to stay here," he said, low and urgent. "Don't come around the corner." My heart kicked. "Wes, what's going on?" But he was already walking toward the side door, grabbing a rag to wipe his hands. His shoulders were stiff, his whole energy changed. I felt suddenly like a stranger in the room I had just surrendered myself to. I moved slowly toward the edge of the table, not enough to be seen, but close enough to hear. The side door creaked open. Then a voice, feminine, sharp, too familiar. "You haven't been answering me." Wes sighed. "Now's not a good time." "Well, I gathered that," she snapped. "You said you'd help with the move. We leave tomorrow. Or did you forget?" My blood ran cold. "Move?" The woman stepped inside. Her footsteps were light, quick, purposeful. I caught a glimpse of her through the gap between shelves, tall, sharp chin, cropped hair, jean jacket. Pretty, but not gentle. She looked around. "Smells like someone's been distracting you." Wes didn't speak. She paused. "Is she here?" I held my breath. Wes finally said, "That's none of your business anymore." That silence was thunderous. "I'm still your ex," she said. "Not your past. You're the one leaving. I asked you to come with me. And I said no." More silence. Then softer. "You said you'd think about it." I did. I thought about what I'd be leaving behind. I backed away from the shelves, heart racing. My mind was spinning. Ex leaving. Still attached. What exactly had I walked into? The woman's voice dropped lower. "She's not like us, Wes. You don't know her." "She doesn't know you." The way she said it sent a chill through me. As if there were whole rooms inside him I hadn't entered yet. And maybe never would. "You should go," he said. "And you should stop pretending this isn't just another way to prove you can't be alone." She turned and left without slamming the door. That was the worst part. No drama. Just truth, sharp and elegant, like the kind of cut that doesn't bleed until it's too late. When he came back, I was still standing at the table. He looked wrecked. I tried to speak, but the words tangled. "She's leaving," he said finally. "To Portland." She wanted me to go with her. I didn't. I folded my arms. You didn't mention an ex yesterday. Because I didn't want her to matter anymore. But she still does. He exhaled. Not the way you think. I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because the ache in my chest needed somewhere to go. I thought I was the complicated one. You are, he said softly. But you're honest about it. We stood in that heavy silence for a long moment. The heat between us hadn't disappeared. It had just changed color. Still burning but now flickering with doubt. I need to know something, I said. Was I just a reaction? Something to prove you've moved on? He stepped closer, placing his hand over mine. No, he said. You were the reason I finally stopped lying to myself. I wanted to believe him. God, I wanted to believe him. But some part of me still stood in that doorway, watching a woman leave without slamming it, because she didn't have to. She already knew she'd be back. And I didn't know if I could compete with that kind of history. But I did know one thing. If I walked away now, I'd never stop wondering. I didn't leave. I thought I would. After hearing her voice, the history in it, the unfinished business, I thought I'd walk out, close the door behind me, and pretend I hadn't been cracked open in this place. But instead, I stayed. Maybe it was pride. Maybe it was desire. Maybe I needed to know if what he said was real, or if I was just another curve of what he was shaping into a memory. Wes didn't speak for a long time. He just stood there, watching me like he knew whatever came next would either build something, or break everything. I didn't ask for this, he finally said. Neither did I. But I want it. I swallowed. Do you want me? Or do you want to forget her? His eyes softened, but his voice stayed firm. You're not her shadow. You're the first person I've wanted to see me, not fix me. Not follow me. Not drag me somewhere I don't want to go. He took a step forward. I want the woman who walked in here with her guard up and her eyes wide, who smelled the sawdust and stayed anyway, who let herself want something again, even if it scared her. He took my hands, not rough this time, just warm, steady. I want you. Not the fantasy. Not the metaphor. Just you. I looked down at our hands, rough and soft, warm and unsure, like a promise still learning how to hold its shape. I don't know what this is, I whispered, or if I'm strong enough to find out. He leaned in, brushing his forehead against mine. We don't have to know, he said. We just have to keep showing up. That simple. That terrifying. That real. He pulled me into him then, not with heat this time but with something quieter. Arms around me. No rush. No pressure. Just stillness. The kind that lets you feel your own heartbeat again. I pressed my cheek to his chest and listened, not just to the rhythm under his ribs, but to the sound of something beginning. And in that quiet, with the sun cutting through the dust and the air thick with memory, I realized something I hadn't let myself believe in a long time. Sometimes, healing doesn't come in the form of answers. Sometimes it comes in calloused hands that know how to hold something fragile. And want to, really want to,